Hey guys, thanks for joining us today on Sports Business Nation. I'm your host, Ryan Deal. We're thrilled to have you on board for the inaugural season of SBN, the podcast and content provider founded by passionate young sports professionals for the benefit of other passionate students and professionals of all types. The business of sports goes so much deeper than contract signings and Super Bowl rings, and here at SBN, we host top-level professionals from the real world of front office sports to gain from their insights on a different core subject each week. Please be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can join us all season for an insider's look, and please tell your friends, family, and colleagues to do the same. To learn more about our mission here at Sports Business Nation and see everything we have to offer, please visit our website at www.sportsbusinessnation.com and follow us on all your social media, including LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
And what we talk about amongst ourselves here is about, if we are not making mistakes, we're not pushing hard enough. I mean, one of the things we like to do here is be different and be innovative and be first and get out in front and think about life a little differently. And if you do that, if you choose to do any one of those things, your likelihood of failure goes up dramatically.
Whether they're Olympians on the track or corporate Goliaths in the boardroom, we all understand the importance of being the first to get somewhere, and those same competitive drives dominate front office strategy in today's world of sports business. The drive to innovate and make something special appeals to all of us, but ultimately it's only the pioneers at the forefront, like the Wright brothers or Jeff Bezos, who shape our shared experiences and impact the world, hopefully for the better. For this episode, and the finale of Sports Business Nation Season 1, we'll be discussing innovation and the importance of being first, and are lucky enough to spend our time with one of sports' most experienced and passionate innovators, Scott ONeil.
I guess my lessons are, one, if you're not failing, you're not pushing. And two, don't make the same mistake twice. And three, what are the lessons you learned and how can you apply them, not only for yourself, but for the benefit for others?
In his current role, Scott serves as the Chief Executive Officer at Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment, as well as co-managing partner of Elevate Sports Ventures. Mr. ONeil has been the CEO at HBSE since the company's founding in September of 2017, when co-owners Josh Harris and David Blitzer united their multiple teams and properties under a single entity.
And so, I'm charged up. It brings me energy to be around people who see the world differently and have big dreams and big eyes, and oftentimes look past all of the warning signs that come, and just through a sheer will and enthusiasm can build a company. To me, it's so inspiring.
As CEO, Scott oversees the strategic vision, leadership, operations, and global vision for all HBSE properties, which include the Philadelphia 76ers, the New Jersey Devils, the Prudential Center, Team Dignitas, an internationally renowned esports team, NBA 2K League's 76ers Gaming Club, the Sixers Innovation Lab crafted by Kimball, the Grammy Museum Experience at Prudential Center, the Delaware 87ers, and the Binghamton Devils. While HBSE was formally unified in 2017, Scott has been overseeing the 76ers, Devils, Prudential Center, and minor league affiliates since 2013 as the chief executive.
What a great experience to be forced to shut down and to decompress, and then to kind of reformulate and ask myself what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be and what difference did I want to make in the world.
Elevate Sports Ventures is an innovative sports and entertainment agency created in 2018 via a partnership between HBSE, Live Nation, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Oakview Group, where Scott serves as co-managing partner. Prior to his current efforts with the HBSE properties and Elevate Sports, Scott was president of the Madison Square Garden Company, senior vice president of team marketing and business operations for the NBA and Teambo, as well as vice president of sales for the Philadelphia Eagles. In 1998, Mr. ONeil was selected by his classmates at Harvard Business School to deliver their graduation speech along with NBA Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum. Scott previously obtained his undergrad degree at Villanova and to this day remains a ravenous college hoops lover and true sports enthusiast.
David Stern, I just saw a guy who, he was in China in 1982. It doesn't even make sense. People weren't talking about China as a market. And now, of course, everybody, all the sports league, everybody's kind of running to it. But that's real leadership, and that's foresight, and that's thinking differently, and that's taking a chance.
All right, great, and welcome back. For the benefit of our listeners and audience, would you introduce yourself with your name and what it is you do, please?
Sure. My name is Scott ONeil. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on here today, Scott, as I know both hockey and basketball are in the thick of the season. We will try to be respectful of your time, as I know you're a busy guy. Diving right in, we want to talk a little bit before we discuss innovation and the importance of being first about your background. You've got a wide reputation as a competitive, family-friendly guy. As I hear you grew up one of five, I'm not too surprised. You had a great education getting your undergrad at Villanova, joined the industry for a bit before getting your MBA at Harvard Business School. As you look back on your time before getting into the sports business industry, Scott, what qualities or experiences do you think may have led to your success down the road?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say that I came from a pretty incredible family. My family, my parents both worked, both entrepreneurs. They valued education very highly. They're both PhDs, and neither were given anything. They had to earn everything they had. So I think from that early experience from a family life, I learned the value of hard work for sure. I worked hard, and I actually saw my parents every day, giving their all. They taught leadership development and training and teamwork and quality. So from the time I was 7, 8 years old, I was either collating decks or hearing them talk about the value of team. I also grew up in and around team sports. So I think, I think I have a tremendous kind of love and appreciation for the value of a team sport and how you lead and follow and win and lose and sacrifice yourself for the good of the team. And so that, I guess it's an amalgamation of things in my childhood that I think have helped along the way.
Well, I imagine as somebody who leads sports teams, having a background in competitive sports as well as a family that prides itself on leadership expertise is probably a good place to begin. Staying with your earlier years, and you talked about working hard and seeing your parents work hard from an early age. Can you tell us about a job that you had maybe as a teenager or, when you were in college that maybe you scraped your knees a little and learned some lessons the hard way, but now in hindsight, exactly the type of job where you learned some valuable lessons and maybe want your own daughters to have this day and age?
Well, I hope my own daughters don't have to have the jobs I had when I was young. I had my first job when I was 14, and I was working for a pool company, digging pools. So, I was like the young man on the totem pole or the low guy on the totem pole. So I always had the worst jobs. So when we'd finally put the liner in and fill the pool with water, there was always one person that had to go in the freezing cold water and press in the liner.
Oof.
Yeah, it wasn't great. And then if there was a problem with the filter, we would carve out a little, like almost like a tunnel in the ground, and they would like shove somebody in there with a little light on my helmet. That was me to try to tell them what was happening. They would pull me out by my feet. And then the jack, I was so little at that time, when we'd hit shale, we'd get jackhammers. And, I'd be feeling that for 3 days in my arms. And to make matters worse, when we do cement in and around the pools to put in, the decking around was oftentimes cement. And you'd have to take these wheelbarrows, and they'd probably be, 80 pounds full of wet cement. And you build little triangles over the framing with 2x4s. And I just remember being so little, like I would be putting all my might into like push it up the little hill and then push it down the hill. And inevitably once a time, the weight would just like kind of tip me over. And that always drew not exactly the warm and fuzzy pats on the back. It's okay, kid. So it was a pretty rough and tumble environment. So that was one environment it was ceramic pool, TED ceramic pools, in Newburgh, New York, which I absolutely like. I love the experience. I always appreciated manual labor. I've had mostly manual labor jobs when I was growing up. I worked at a Pepsi plant delivering Pepsi machines, and there I got to understand the value of leverage. One almost fell on me. I actually had a big guy named Ron catch a Pepsi machine that was falling down the steps on me. Just caught it. Like, that's how strong he was. Pretty amazing. What else did I do? I worked landscaping for a couple summers. I worked at a farmer's market. My hours were 3 a.m. till 12 noon. I ate a lot of good fruits. It's actually the first time and last time I tried tobacco. There were only two of us that spoke English as our primary language there. It's been a bit of a rough and tumble neighborhood in East Hartford. I remember I dipped some tobacco, and that didn't agree with me. So it's a good lesson to get early on as a young age. But I think generally, like, the sum of my parts early on were work, 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 work. And most people look so forward to Friday at 5. I didn't. I always loved to work and was comfortable. The second thing was just the range of people I got exposed to. I was exposed to a wealthy family that was putting in a pool, and then a store owner in East Hartford that was coming to pick up strawberries. And every nickel counted. And I think the ability at a really young age to understand how to talk to different people in different situations has served me fairly well as well.
That definitely sounds like quite a diversity of experiences there. And I do guess I understand between the amateur spelunking, the jackhammering, and the chewing tobacco. Maybe you don't want your kids to have these jobs nowadays. Like, I do understand that, I guess.
I had one day, the watermelons would come up from Georgia, and that was always like my most terrifying day because we would be, again, two young guys there. They would give us the worst job. So I usually they usually put me dealing with customers because most customers spoke English as primary language. I was one of the few that did. So I would work with the customers, then go back and help, like hop on a forklift and pick up the fruits and all that stuff for the bigger customers. And the smaller customers, I would just help them out. And watermelon day, they'd always take me and one of the other guys, and they'd put us in the back, and we'd have to do like 50 count watermelon buckets. Put them in inevitably, out of every 50, 75 watermelons, there'd be a snake inside one of them. And it was just terrifying to me, but I remember this one guy's name was Randy. I can't remember his last name, but I can picture him, like thick mustache. And he'd just come out of prison somewhere, unfortunately. And this I pick up a watermelon, and it's like you can feel the snake like rattling around in there. And I like, he just took a knife out and just killed the snake, the first snake down. So I never no. I'm sure they were harmless, but as an 18-year-old kid who wasn't, I was not much of one for nature ever. I didn't grow up in that kind of environment. That was my most terrifying days.
Your own little Steve Irwin experience. Well, I'm glad you made it out. In looking a little further ahead here, this past April, actually, April 2018, Inc.com wrote an article on an interview you all did about how the 76ers, you like to think of running them like a family or a family business, and how you also feel that companies nowadays in the modern workspace need to accommodate working parents in some more forward-thinking ways. How is it you're able to cross-pollinate your strong family values at home with the companies you run in the office?
I just want to, just one little edit. Like we run this like a family business with the accountability and discipline of a private equity controlled shop. I love the soft stuff. I love the opportunity to spend time and get to know the people I work with, and building an environment that feels like a family is very much how I want to live. But I don't want that to sound that it's different from a hardcore know your numbers, live by your numbers type environment, because it very much is. So the combination of that, I think, is the magic of our place, quite frankly. I don't think there's any other way these days, and maybe we're at the forefront of it, and people will follow. But the way technology has impacted our lives, there is the line between work and home is a lot less defined. It's definitely more gray, and so the extent that you come to the office and your daughter's school gets closed, your daughter might be here with us, or you might work from home, or the extent you might have to deal with something at a bank, and you just deal with it at work, or at home there might be a conference call. I think the line is blurry, and so I think the bigger question is how do we maintain the discipline in this environment to make sure that we're very present where we are. Are we present at home? Are we present at work? Are we doing the best? Am I being a great dad? Am I being a great husband? Am I being a great coworker here? And I think the extent that we can figure that out, we're closer to solving the world's problems than anything else.
Absolutely. And having been lucky enough to work at some of your offices myself, I tell you, things like when we have events where the families are allowed to come out or bring your kid to work day. I mean, those are some of the most fun environments for any of the buildings at the companies you run. So I could tell that's definitely ingrained. Now, even if it was before your time with Harris Blitzer, as you look back on your rise in the sports industry, can you tell us a little bit about maybe one or two of the best mistakes you made along the way, Scott, and some of the lessons you learned from them?
Yeah, if I wrote a book on my mistakes, it would be quite a thick voluminous, maybe 2 or 3 volumes long. So yeah, I've made so many mistakes along the way, and I don't have any shame about it. Like I think that life provides you such an opportunity to grow and learn. And what we talk about amongst ourselves here is about, if we are not making mistakes, we're not pushing hard enough. I mean, one of the things we like to do here is be different and be innovative and be first and get out in front and think about life a little differently. And if you do that, if you choose to do any one of those things, your likelihood of failure goes up dramatically. And I think the extent that you do trip and fall, it's okay, as long as you pop up a little quicker the next, and you don't make the same mistake the next time. So boy, mistakes. I made an awful mistake when I was with the Philadelphia Eagles, where I went on a kind of a low end broadcast, like a, what is it called, a community service television, and I said I hadn't cleared it with our public relations group.
Big no, Scott. You can't be going on media without clearing it with PR. I'll tell you.
And I hadn't cleared it with my boss, but at that point, I think I was 24 years old, and I said something really dumb after it being asked the same question 15 times that I eluded the first 14, and finally I answered the question about a stadium and would we move, and some little crappy community television, and at the end of the day, it ended up in the back page of the paper the next day. And that was a big awakening. I mean, it should have been fired clearly, because it caused all kinds of problems and issues in a big storm in the city. And so again, I haven't made that mistake again, thank goodness. But that is something that I certainly learned from. I learned how to communicate better, and I learned how to work within the system, and I learned to go get media trained and understand how to answer questions and how to bridge off stuff you don't want to answer. But that was a pretty tough one. Hoops TV, we had a pretty bad failure. I went out and raised $15 million to create kind of the next version of what became NBA TV. Whoops. And right on the cusp of the dot-com bubble burst. And so blowing through $15 million of other people's money in 18 months and having to lay off the 50 some odd staff members, including like dear friends and family members, was a real tough one. And to be flat broke after that wasn't fun either. So, I mean, I could tell you, like, my timing was bad, my management was bad, my execution was bad, but the lessons, stay with me to this day. People that work with me now know I talk about cash and cash management way too much, and I understand, even in our early stage businesses that we fund and start, and some of that I'm on the board of. A lot of times they'll hear me talking about cash. They'll say, "No, this is growth phase." I'm like, I want to understand the cash position. I unwound out of, I don't know, we had probably 100 contracts that I had to wind down at the end. Even going through that process was a great learning experience. I'm calling companies we had contracts with, and I said, "Hey, we're going out of business. We pay 20 cents on the dollar now. Tomorrow it'll be 10. The day after it's going to be 5. After that, it'll be locked away in a storage cabinet somewhere, and you'll never find me. So can we do a deal?" So even unwinding deals was just a great experience in negotiation. That served me pretty well these days. Understanding leverage points and timing, and collaboration and communication, and when to say what in the heat of a negotiation, and when to walk away. So all these, like I said, I can go on with 50 lessons, but the failures come in all shapes and sizes. I got fired from Madison Square Garden. I was president of Madison Square Garden. Great job. Born and bred in New York, so it was a bit of a dream job as a young executive rising up in the ranks. And it's tough to see your name in the paper. ONeil fired, ONeil let go. So that tough is that stuff. I think for me was, how would I say, like, what a great experience to have to be forced to shut down and to decompress, and then to kind of reformulate and ask myself what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be, and what difference did I want to make in the world. That's a pretty good lesson to get, in your early 40s. So I've had, like I said, I could go on my failure rant for 3 hours, but I always think, like, one, I guess my lessons are, one, if you're not failing, you're not pushing, and two, don't make the same mistake twice, and three, what are the lessons you learned and how can you apply them not only for yourself but for the benefit for others?
No, absolutely. If nothing else, a mistake's a new opportunity to do things in a better way. So I think that's a great way to go about looking at it. Those are some great stories there. Although I think, maybe you should be a little less hard on yourself. I'm sure you could write an equally long book on some of the good decisions you made, Scott. Because we'll have you talk about, here moving forward, the core of today's conversation is on, innovations and the importance of being first. And this day and age, there seems to be no shortage of innovation coming out of your camps. Correct me if I'm wrong, but a little over a year ago, end of the summer 2017, you guys announced Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment. And then a little under a year ago, January 2018, you guys announced a new collaborative venture called Elevate Sports in conjunction with the San Francisco 49ers, Live Nation, and the Oakview Group. What's so unique about what you guys are trying to do right now, and where are you trying to head with all this?
Sure. So I can start with Elevate, which I love. So we were at the World Congress of Sports in California, Data Point, California, and we're sitting out back and talking with some friends, Howie Newchow and Mike Levine, who runs CAA, Paul Danforth, all the CAA guys, and then Al Guido at the 49ers, Jared Smith, who runs Ticketmaster, and Tim Lewicki, who's at OVG, and we just kept saying, hey, we've all been friends, we've been in this business so long, we should do something together. And from that came Elevate, which is kind of a collaboration of four of those parties. And we've just started about 6 months ago. We've got about a dozen clients, more knocking on the door. And it's our aim to create a world-class company with incredible partners. And I actually, we're working on a strategic plan now, so I'm not sure where it actually evolves to and ends up. I do know that our partners in that business want to do really big things. And that's pretty exciting and fun. Our innovation lab is something that I get up thinking about every day. We just added two more companies, Camelot and Hydrant, which I don't think we've even announced yet. But they're fantastic young entrepreneurs that add to this mix here. We now have 6 companies in the lab, and they bring this just entrepreneurial enthusiasm. Like I mentioned before, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My 3 brothers each run companies that they either founded or bought very, very early stage. And so I'm charged up. It brings me energy to be around people who see the world differently and have big dreams and big eyes and oftentimes look past all of the warning signs that come and just through a sheer will and enthusiasm can build a company. To me, it's so inspiring.
Well, I'm actually glad you brought up the Innovation Lab because I was reading an article from LinkedIn about the Sixers Innovation Lab where Mike Wagner of Kimball Office referred to the labs as, quote, the perfect example of American ingenuity and entrepreneurial spirit. So how do you see some of these new initiatives, like some of these new ventures or the Innovation Lab, or even just, your general efforts for global brand expansion of both the NBA and NHL? How are those manifestations of your core innovative drives to just be first in creating something new?
Yeah, being first is a lot more fun than being second. That I can tell you. And there's nothing wrong with being second. It's philosophically, I think I got that from David Stern. It's when I worked at the NBA, I've been around a lot of people who do things really differently. Seth Berger, who founded And One, was a co-founder at Hoops TV with me, and he started a sneaker brand and out of the trunk of his car, and then to see him build a $200 million company. Pretty special. He's the guy who actually runs our innovation lab now, but we have a long history together. And then being with David Stern, I just saw a guy who, he was in China in 1982. It doesn't even make sense. People weren't talking about China as a market. And now, of course, everybody, all the sports leagues, everybody's kind of running to it. But that's real leadership. And that's foresight. And that's thinking differently. And that's taking a chance. And I think, having worked for some of the folks that I have, John Spoelstra is my first boss, kind of a legendary guy who literally wrote the book on how to sell tickets in the NBA, president of the Nets. Gave me my first big promotion from an assistant to a manager. He just thought differently. And I don't know, I think I've been inspired by a lot of people I've been around to just have that mindset. And then to be able to work for a company or with a company and with people who have that same like-minded spirit that, hey, we can do anything we put our minds to. It's pretty fun. It's a good way to spend a day.
Well, and I appreciate you bringing up your work with Mr. Spoelstra. One of our previous guests from MSG, Ryan England, was talking about Ice to Eskimos as one of the books he recommends, and certainly a staple for anybody who's getting into the industry now. I was going to ask you about somebody you work with in the past, how you did things differently. So you kind of already answered that question, but very thrilled with the person you chose. Somebody I look up to, certainly somebody I've never met but would love to.
Yeah, no, let me just give you a quick John Spoelstra story. He's the guy. Like I assume, I think he wrote a few books, but I think this one's in there. Is I remember we had an okay team. Like for the Nets, actually a pretty good team. It was Garrett Coleman, Kenny Anderson, Drazen Petrovic, and Benoit Benjamin and Chris Morris. Like a pretty good five. And none of the guys ever emerged. And unfortunately, Drazen passed away in a tragic car accident. But that team was actually pretty good. And we went into our renewal season, and we didn't know how to get people to come back that hadn't renewed. And it was his idea to send out rubber chickens. So we sent out rubber chickens to the non-renewed season ticket holders, and it said like, "Don't choke out" or something. I can't remember what it was, and I just thought, man, this guy is unbelievable. And he was. I mean, he wanted to change the name of the Nets to the Swamp Dragons because the Meadowlands is a swampy land, and went all the way up to the Board of Governors to get it switched. I mean, he just everything was just like everything was on the table all the time, and there were 5 of us that we would he would take us out for dinner once a week, and he'd think like as a 22-year-old kid to have John Spoelstra take you out to dinner and talk about anything as long as it's related to business with him, and it was pretty incredible. I mean, I've been pretty fortunate in my work for.
Well, you let John know that I'd buy a New Jersey Swamp Dragons jersey any day if I wasn't such a dedicated Sixers fan at the moment. So it sounds to me like a lot of what's been going on, you guys are doing some collaborative things with other companies, or you look at, companies that now a company like Legends that Elevate might compete with. There's a lot of new priorities that are kind of taking over the sports industry right now. Why do you see some of these trends towards opportunities like real estate investment, tech innovations, venture capitalist opportunities? Why have those kind of been trending through the industry the last 5 to 10 years? And why is this going to make the sports industry better in the future?
Yeah. Well, I would say a couple things. One on Legends. This business. It's small, and I've been in this business 25 years now. And so most of the people, men and women running these companies are people I either worked with, worked alongside, worked for, or are friends. And so the Legends guys, it's not really a competitive business. Legends is a huge business, $1 billion business. They've got, they were managing arenas. They've got a huge concession business. We compete with them in a little slice of the pie, but I'm sure we'll partner in others. And Chad Estes at the Cowboys and Randy Levine at the Yankees kind of put that deal together. Our friends of mine, and Shervin and Mike Toman and Mike Ondrako, the 3 kind of heads of that business are like dear friends of mine. And we more kid about the competitiveness, and there's plenty of business and work out there for all of us, I think. So that part is I don't know, it's fun. Like I think about how we might, like every business we look at, I always think about who we might partner with, or who might be a fun person to be in business with, or how, given what we're good at and given what someone else is good at, how might we grow together? How might we build something really special together? So that's what I spend a lot of time on.
So it's more seeing where the opportunities are coming from and just pursuing what makes sense, I guess, huh?
Yeah, on the venture capital point, and the real estate point, I just think these businesses, you can go back 20 years, 25 years when I started, I think the Nets are probably worth $15 million. The Nets sold for $2.2 billion without their arena. And so, that's 25, and that's it. That's pretty exponential growth. So these brands are big and valuable. It's a global business. So it's no longer that the Philadelphia 76ers are a big deal in the Delaware Valley. It's that the Philadelphia 76ers are a big deal around the world. Ben Simmons is from Australia, so our starting point guard. Joel Embiid is from Cameroon in Africa, so our starting center. I mean, this is a global franchise. We just spent a week or so in China playing preseason games. We played a regular season game in London last year. I mean, this is a global property. So when you have brands that are both growing in value and growing in influence and presence, it provides opportunity to do other things and build other things. And so for us, we think real estate is really interesting. I mean, we wouldn't be the first ones in there. I mean, if you look around at every arena and stadium, in the U.S., the development around those businesses is worth more. There's more retail going up. There are better prices on condos and apartments. The incredible mixed use facilities that seem to be emerging out of nowhere. You look at Sacramento, the 13-acre development. You look at what Detroit's doing, rebuilding a whole downtown around their sports properties. I mean, I was just in Milwaukee. They've got I think they have 10 acres that they're developing. And so I think our brands are bigger, the business is bigger, the risk is higher, and it's a way to take some risk and spread it out over multiple different businesses. So I think it's just a function of this is becoming a real business now.
Just the natural evolution of things. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I do want to wrap this up here as I realize you got a busy day ahead of you here. Just one or two more questions for you. And this first one will tie back, I guess, to my first, what we were talking about earlier about being family. So you're a strong supporter of family values at the office, but I can also imagine that being so innovative and being first all the time ends up being pretty cutthroat. How do you and your companies end up balancing a culture where you have that competitive tenacity, but you also balance it with some of the, principles like palms up and being a team first mentality that you also espouse?
Yeah, I hope it's not cutthroat. I think, like, in particular, most of our group here, like the majority of our people are in sales. This is a sales and marketing organization. Our ticket sales group in particular, I think, has done an incredible job of creating an environment where, it's collaborative and it's team first, but it's not perfect. We have a great Jake Reynolds is our leader in that group, and it's I think one of the elite emerging executives in all sports, maybe all business, in terms of creating culture and creating an environment where you want to come in and win together. And I think that's the fun part. There's plenty of business to go around, and there's plenty of opportunity and plenty of promotions and plenty of things to go grab. But to the extent we can root for each other, like that's the kind of environment that I work really well in, and I hope that millennials would agree. They seem to from the results.
I mean, who wouldn't want to work in a place like that? It does sound like fun.
You
And I
would know better than anybody.
What's that?
You would know as well as anybody.
Yeah, well, I have had a little experience, but as I can tell, we got to get you off to your next commitment here. We will let you go. Again, thank you so much for being a resource for us and our listeners here on Sports Business Nation. Scott, this has been incredibly insightful. Before we let you go, do you have any parting pieces of advice for our listeners?
Yes, just one. Make sure that you listen to all your podcasts. Listen to your sage advice. I think you're amazing, incredible, and I'm rooting for you at school.
I appreciate it, Scott. Thank you very much. Luckily, it's your advice we're here for, more so than mine, but glad you're a fan. And hey, hopefully we'll have you back here on in the future.
I hope so.
All right. Be well, Scott.